Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. It's Tuesday. That is time for the Tuesday live stream. Every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching this in Futureland, welcome. In this video, the idea is I'm going to do the video as long as the questions last. So the intro gives you a chance to get your questions into the chat. I have some questions people have sent me, in case there aren't any in the chat. And the goal is for you to get the information that an investor keeps in top of mind awareness during a live stream. Not something I had to look up, not something when you ask a question, if it's a certain detailed tax question and I say, well, I would ask a pro, then it means it's not something that I had to keep in top of mind awareness to make quick decisions with, because that's the goal of having this knowledge in top of mind is you can make a decision whether you should buy something, whether you should hurry, whether you should wait, whether it's not the right time for you. I hope the information helps. How to make inflation your BFF, your best friend. The one thing that has done the most for my financial freedom and my ability to not only retire early, but stay retired early has been inflation. I think inflation has done more for me than any individual that I have known, which is saying a lot. If you are the average working person and you sell your life 1 hour at a time working a W-2 and you save for retirement and you contribute to your retirement accounts and you work for a pension, inflation is the bad guy. It's the big scary fuzzy that tells you not to know what's going to happen in the future and that someday inflation might outpace your wages. Right? The average annual increase in wages is about 3%. Right? If you're a veteran, you know you get your fancy sheet, your cost of living wage, which they tell you make millions of dollars because of all the benefits you have, but your actual take-home pay changes somewhere between 2 and 4%. I remember there was a president that went in, and the first thing he did was like a 13% military pay increase. I believe it was Reagan who did that. But on most years, it's 2 to 3%. Inflation, the target rate goal, the government has, the Fed has a target rate goal of 2 to 3% for a couple of reasons, because inflation is the government's friend too. So how do you make inflation your friend? If it starts off being the enemy, most of us, the majority of us, aren't entrepreneurs, aren't making our money with running a business, starting a side hustle. Most of us go out and get a job. Some of us join the military. Some of us go to college and delay getting a job. But then when you get a job, you sell your life 1 hour at a time. It's taxed. That's earned income. It's taxed really high. And you can change jobs. You can get promotions. You can change companies. You can get more than that 3% per year annual increase. You can learn a new trade, make a different amount of money. But once you get the job, on average, it's a 3% per year increase. Now, recently, the Boeing union turned down a 10% increase over 4 years because that's not even 3% a year. I get it. Good time to offload some Boeing stock, I think, as they're going into negotiations. So if your wage doesn't increase with inflation, here's the problem. You go to buy a bottle of, let's say this is water, and that's how you travel with the water that makes your eyes water. It costs $1. You pay $1 for your bottle of water. And then inflation is 3%. Next year, you need $1.03 to buy 3% more to buy the same bottle of water. The water didn't change. The value of the water didn't change. You get the same amount out of that bottle of water. The amount of currency it takes to buy the bottle is what changed. So if you got a 3% raise and you were making $100,000 a year and everything costs 3% more and you got a 3% raise, so you're making 103,000, but all the things you bought last year cost 3% more. You didn't actually get a raise. You just broke even with inflation. It's the enemy. So how do you make it your best friend to where you actually get torn, where, yes, you make America great again. You vote for Trump because you care about the working class, but you're also a capitalist and you understand that the Democrats are making you stupid rich because of inflation. The inflation that is happening, are you super selfish and you vote for Kamala so you can get more inflation for the next 4 years to become richer because inflation became my best friend? If you're still working and you're not at financial freedom yet, inflation's kind of the enemy. Once you acquire the assets or the cash flow that gets you towards financial freedom, here's how it changes. So if this person makes $100,000 a year and inflation goes up 3%, which was inflation 3% for the last 4 years? No. AI is kind of messed up. It'll say inflation is around 3% for the last 4 years, but we had 1 year where it was at 9, right? Or a period of the year where it was at 9. We had 5 to 8% the other 2 years, but somehow from 2020 to 2024, inflation is around 3%. AI's got a lot to learn. Are you paying the same for eggs and fuel and everything that you paid in 2020 that you are now? What has happened to rents in the last 4 years? We've seen record inflation, but we've also seen record wage increases. People are making more money. They're kind of trying to keep up with inflation. When you have an asset that pays you cash flow, inflation doesn't hurt. Here's an example. My insurance goes up 100%. My rents have gone up more than this. And in different areas, it's different. There's some rents where it's probably less, some areas where it's a lot more. But according to the Google AI that's out there, rents have increased about 30% in the last 4 years. So if your rents go up 30%, but your insurance goes up 100%, it sounds like even inflation hurts the rich people who own the assets, but that's not how it works. Insurance going up 100% takes your cost from $700 a year to $1,400 a year. But a 30% increase in rents take you from $2,000 a month to $2,600 a month. You make in almost 1 month the cost of your insurance doubling for the year, and then the rent increased for the entire year. So the way inflation is your friend is you own the things that cost more. Right? One of the considerations when calculating inflation is what's called owner equivalent rent. So the owner, it's even a flawed metric. It's much lower than what actual rent increases were. But they go to owners of properties and they say, what do you think you could rent your property for? And they say, oh, I don't know, 5% more, 10% more. A rent increase on your gross side has a much larger impact to your cash flow than an increase to your expenses. Because people talk in percentages. Your insurance increased 100%, rent only increased 30%. But that 30% had a massive impact to your net, what you're actually taking home. Whereas the insurance doubling is still a small number, even though it's a large percentile increase. So let's go run through some numbers from 2020. Here's how inflation has become my best friend. And what I'm wanting you to do is understand, do you think inflation's going to go away? Do you think that there's going to be no inflation 10 years from now? So what I'm going to be talking about is the things you can do starting now. Hopefully you've been watching the channel for a few years and you're a couple of years into your journey, like several of the people in the comments are. Like the person who reached out this morning and said, hey, thank you very much. I used the binder strategy. I was hoping for a $100 increase a month. Tenant asked for $150. I have happy tenants. Thank you very much. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my brother doing his binder strategy 3 times so far and what the results are. Not going to be what you expect. In 2020, I had a job. I was still working at the CDL school. My net worth, as of ironically weird day, January 6th, 2020, my net worth passed $1 million. Now my debt passed $1 million too. So I purchased my fourplex, closed on January 6th. My debt obligation on mortgages passed $1 million and my net worth passed $1 million. Yes, you can have a positive net worth even if you have debt. The idea is if you sold everything and paid off all the debt and paid off all the taxes and paid the cost of selling, realty agents, realtors, or anything that's associated with the cost of selling your assets, what's left is your net worth. I would have had about $1 million left after selling everything, after paying all the taxes, after paying the agent fees. I had a job. I quit working in 2022. So I had 2 years of work, so far 2 years of not working. Here's what's happened because of inflation. The wages increase about 3% a year. Inflation increases about 3% a year. Now, yes, we've had some crazy years, the last few, massive inflation. Depending on how the election goes, we can have some massive inflation in the next few years. Either way, it's possible because we've created more currency. So there's going to be inflation either way, either outcome with this. One might create more housing demand. So home prices might go up because we allow so many people into the country, which increases demand on our limited housing supply. If you Google the average increase of property values, it says it's about 5% a year. Now, just like inflation and just like wages in the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen some 19% appreciation years, some 24% appreciation. Just in Washington state, your local area might be different, but in most places, it was more than the 5% that's expected. So in this, which could be whiteboarded, but I'm doing this video for the people who listen podcast version where I'm going to articulate every idea. Inflation target goal is around 3%. Wage increase is around 3%. Properties increase at 5%. So that would make it seem like if you own the properties, you make a little bit more than inflation, but that's not how it works. The appreciation on your assets is not based on how much you've invested. If I invest $100,000 into a duplex, purchased it in May of 2021, it's about a $400,000 duplex. I negotiated it down a little bit. My offer was $400,000. List price was $400,000. All my deals are from the MLS. Almost all of them were purchased for list price except for one. And then I do negotiate down if possible after getting under contract without blowing up the deal because I knew the offer that I made was one I was comfortable with. So about $100,000 down on the 25% down payment on my property. So I have $100,000 in the property. It needed less than $400 worth of work. I think there was like a fan and the light on the driveway. I'm trying to think, is that might be the place where I added a screen door. I forget. This has been 2 years and 3 years, and my memory is not great. So that's why the post-it up there says it's Tuesday. It's your live stream. I'm $100,000 into this property. If it appreciated 5%, inflation means things are going to cost around 3% more. So 5% would mean, well, if I've made 100,000 and it's gone up 3%, things now cost 3% more. I need that 103 to break even. 5% appreciation on 100,000 would be $5,000. It sounds like I made more. 5,000 is more than 3,000. But I gained, now remember, it was 19 and 24 a couple of these years, but we're just going to say it was 5%, like the historical data average. I gained the 5% on the $400,000 value of the property, not the amount that I have invested in the property. So 5% increase, instead of gaining $5,000 in value, that one property gained 20. 5% of 400,000 is $20,000. When you gain $20,000 as a byproduct outside of the cash flow, right? About 11% cash on cash return. So we'll round it off to 10. We'll lower that, be more conservative. I'm making about 10 grand a year off of that property in profit. And this is after mortgage, after taxes, interest, insurance, after setting aside for vacancy, repairs and maintenance. There's a little over 10 grand in profit. That's not taxed because I get to depreciate the full value of the property as well, of the buildings on the property. That 10,000 is outside of the $20,000 increase. So in a couple of years, I've made 10,000 a year since 2021. So 2022, 2023, 2024, so 30 grand. And then 5% increase every year, which would be increased more every year because it's 400, then 420, then 4, whatever the math is. Or yeah, 20 and 500. I've made tens of thousands of dollars off of one property by putting my money, which could have been sitting in the bank. That 100,000 could have been sitting in the bank. And there could have been years where I made 4%, maybe 5% if I put it in an online account because, interest rates went up. So I could have made some money, but instead I didn't buy a property by spending money. I purchased a duplex by moving money. I took the $100,000 in the bank and I moved it into the property. It is still there. It's still mine. I could sell, I could cash out, refinance, I could take out a HELOC as there's appreciation. That money's still mine, still sitting there. It's just not in the bank. getting me that 10% return first year, more than that now, gaining me, because of inflation, the appreciation. Because what is inflation? It's not that things cost more. That's what most people think, because that's how we see it, right? You go to buy the eggs and you go, okay, it was $2. Now it's 5. That's 100 and something percent more that it's costing me. So inflation means things cost more. No, we've inflated the number of dollars, number of currency, the amount of currency in circulation, meaning to buy the eggs, which have not changed in value. The water has $1 worth of value, but since there's more dollars, they have less value, and it takes more dollars to purchase the same thing. It takes more dollars to purchase the property. That's where the 5% annual on average increase comes, the 20,000 increase, the cash flow from this. So here's the thing. If wages increase 3% on average, and sometimes you can change companies or sometimes you can learn a new skill and make more money, but there's only so many opportunities to do that in your working career, right? You bounce too many jobs too often, you might not be able to get another job, right? I would say every 2 to 3 years you could bounce jobs and be fine. But if you change jobs every 6 months, unless you're contract work, that's going to start looking pretty rough when you have to explain that during an interview. So this 3% annual increase, if that's the target rate for inflation, you're always going to be breaking even. There is no financial freedom there. There is no retirement there. There is no getting ahead there. Because those few times when you do make more money and get that big increase, there's going to be something that happens to inflation where you have a 9% year, like 2022, where it hit literally 9.1 for a period of time. But most of that year was at 8%. At 3% or maybe 5% because you had a better job that year don't look so good. So January 6, 2020, I got $1 million in debt, $1 million in net worth. Now, since then, I acquired a triplex with more debt, a duplex with more debt. I have about $1.8 million in total debt across the portfolio currently. It's less than that. It's like 1.7 now. So it's coming down, 1.7 something. So my debt's gone up, but the net worth, because of inflation, because inflation hits the gross value of the properties, of the assets. So if you own stocks, if you own crypto, if you own real estate, it's hitting your gross value. So this is where margin could be used in stocks, not something I understand or have ever used. So I'm not going to talk on it. I just know that it's a way of using debt to buy more stocks. Probably even butchered that. But I do use debt to purchase real estate. Net worth, I quit working in 2022. So I haven't worked for 2 years now, is over 3 million. When you have assets that appreciate because of inflation based on gross value, and you only have to invest a smaller portion to acquire the gross value, even though there's loans to the bank, I get the appreciation caused by inflation. So inflation is my best friend. It's tripled my net worth with me stopping work halfway through those 4 years. Rents have gone up 30%. They say I've had rents go up 20 to 28% 1 year and then about 20% another at tenant's request. If you can get out of the mindset of I want to work more than 40 hours a week for more than 40 years to retire on less than 40% of what I make, as the question that I got today literally speaks to, and you can say, how do I acquire the assets that benefit from inflation? Yes, if you get a Republican in office, you get tax breaks and incentives to invest more. If you get a Democrat in office, you get more inflation. You get more demand on limited supply because they overregulate, or there is more regulation. Your opinion on overregulation might be different than mine, but it's harder to build. You have more rent control, so less incentive for builders to build because there's not as many investors looking to buy. So you limit the supply, which increases the demand. No matter who's in office, if you have the assets, you can benefit. If you only have your W-2, you can be hurt by either side. The whole point of the intro to this video, not only just to get you time to get your questions in the comments or to attack me because I showed a MAGA hat, come at me. It's okay that we disagree, because don't worry, in some of my videos, I attack the religious people too, so I can hate both sides. And it's okay to hate. It's what you do with that hate that's important. The last way that inflation really becomes your best friend is, I started this with, why do you think the Fed targets an inflation rate of 2 to 3%? Why don't they just want things to cost the same? or maybe even cost less in the future. That's because our country was somewhere around $30 trillion in debt. Now we're passing the $35 trillion in debt because, yay, spending, both sides. One of them wants to spend it on our country. It's called inflation-based debt destruction. I think Jason Hartman is like trying to trademark it. So if he does, give him credit. It's not my thing. It's his thing. You should check out his channel. He's brilliant too. Inflation-based debt destruction. The federal government owes over $30 trillion in debt. If they cause inflation, meaning it takes more currency to buy the assets, it's easier to get the currency, which makes it easier to pay off the debt. $1.8 million in debt. It's a little less than that now, but and as we have inflation, it's easier to acquire the money to pay off the debt because rent goes up. That's what is a part of inflation. It's the people who have assets that understand inflation is a feature, not a bug, like Zuber always says, from one rental at a time. It's not a mistake. It's not like, oh no, we have inflation. It's on purpose that we have inflation. And if you can strategize your investing, your path to financial freedom around that, imagine how much better your future is going to be. Because yeah, there are people that hate the players. They go, you're an evil capitalist. They go, oh, you're a landlord. You own properties. Okay, well, you own stocks, and most of those stocks own real estate. They're goober. So who do you think's the capitalist now? Then you have the poor people who just don't invest at all. No matter how much they make, they can be poor because they're living paycheck to paycheck and not investing and never getting around this inflation thing being an actual part of reality. In 4 years, 2 of those without working, my net worth tripled. My cash flow, and I'm very transparent. I've made videos. I think in 2021, taxes, I was like $128,000 in profit. That might have been 2020 when I was filing in 2021. It could have been 2022. The next year was like 168, and last year was 134, almost 35 in profit after taxes, after setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. Like this is the money that's left for me to goof off with because of inflation. If you have a job and you don't invest in assets and you go from $100,000 a year to $120,000 a year, the cost of eggs and the cost of fuel piss you off. If your net worth triples and your cash flow doubles and you've done almost nothing, and I purchased a place in 2020, I purchased a duplex in 2020, no, that's 2021, 2023. So 2 years later, I did one thing. Since 2023, I haven't purchased anything. Did some work on this one, rehab the other unit, not doing that again. Created $300,000 in profit on this place. Moved from a house hack into this house hack, so I got to rent out a unit, getting paid to live here. If I can talk somebody in the comments into getting on the property ladder or the investing ladder and putting your money to work so you don't have to, I'm not saying I look forward to inflation because I know it hurts people. And that's not my goal. I didn't join the Marines to defend the country to hurt people. I want to help people. But it's a lot easier to help people when I don't have to worry or lose sleep about whoever's in charge making whatever dumb decisions they want, either side, that could impact inflation. Because I know it's going to go up. I know it's going to be there in the future. Because I own the assets, I'm going to benefit from it. Howdy. Welcome to my video after the rant. Hopefully we got some good questions here. I do have a couple that people have sent me that I might get to. I'm trying to get through these as fast as I can so that people aren't waiting too long, because I found out sometimes people put in a question. It's like 20 minutes till I can get to it. So howdy, Dave. Sorry, the $1 million was inflated away that you won for being first, which was actually fourth, right? Lavita, howdy. Good to see you here. Old guy REI, howdy, Frank. Lavita, what is your take on the overall vibe in the towns of Port Orchard, Bremerton, Bainbridge Island, Winslow, and Kingston Wa? So I've delivered to Kingston, don't know too much about it, haven't spent a lot of time there. It's a little further out on the peninsula than I like to go because I have so many friends and family in the Pierce County, Thurston County area, and that's where all my rentals are. So nothing against Kingston, just don't know it. Love Port Orchard enough to move here. I don't think I would buy inside city limits again. So unincorporated Kitsap County. Yay. Although Gig Harbor is a bit on the expensive side for what you get. Not sure. I would check, do a good rent study before I purchase there for an asset. I like the Pacific Northwest. Yes, I'm going to travel in the winter and get out of here to the places where it's a little warmer. But this is one of the few places in the country where everything isn't trying to unalive us. We don't have, it doesn't get so cold that if you get locked out of your house, you die, like Siberia or Maine, or Boston, or wherever Matt's at. Uh, no alligators, panthers, like there probably are bear. Okay, so there are bear. I don't see very many of those. See a lot of deer. If a deer takes you out, I don't know. You might have had that coming. Snakes, spiders, not something you have to worry about. Whereas when I travel and see my friends in Florida or Texas, I feel like I'm in the Australia of the United States, where everything is Jurassic in nature. Uh, Happy with the area out here. Bremerton has some of the higher crime areas of Kitsap County, but they're pretty, what do you call it? Small, not small, they're contained. Uh, like a place in Yelm, Washington called the Pines was a gated community where they built the fence to keep the trash in. Like Port Orchard, good feel for the town. Walk down to the ferries. So I went to on the ferry to the waterfront the other day. Had lunch with Josh and just could spend a day doing that. So I can be in Seattle without having to drive or park in Seattle, and you're on the waterfront where the cruise ships spend tons of money on security and maintenance, so it's very clean there. I hope that helps, Levita. It's a good area. Wayne Wong, Angel R, howdy. Angel, you asked me a question at the end of a live the other day, and I thought I need to answer Angel's question, but I forget what it was. So if you remember what you asked when I was closing out a live stream, please ask it again. Chenda, is rental market weak? I'm having a hard time finding tenants for my property. None of the applications I receive meet my qualification criteria. What I end up usually finding with people, a bunch of people applying who don't qualify, not always. I haven't looked at your listing, right? So if you want to email it to me, I'll put my email in the chat here in a minute. And send it to me. I'll look at it. A lot of times, you have to do a rent study to find out what area average rent is, not what it's projected to be growing to, right? But what is actual area average rent that people are paying. If you are at or above that, you're going to get less and less qualified tenants because they're more likely to make bad financial decisions. So if in an area, 2-bedroom rentals go for $2,000, right? It's pretty close to where mine are at. Mine's somewhere at 1950, somewhere a bit more than that. It's kind of an average 2,000. And I list it 21. The people with bad credit, the people who do a lot of financial decisions based on emotion aren't going to see that it's above area. They're going to say, oh, I like the way it looks. I like that the kitchen was the main picture, right? You don't have to lay the front of the house out first. What's the best feature? That should be the lead in picture, right? And so they'll apply. They don't make good financial decisions like reading the entire description and going, oh, yeah, I need a 700 credit score to apply for this. And I don't think my 390 is going to cut it. So they spend $38 on Zillow to apply for your place. That's what I mean. So the higher you are on the area average rent, even if you have a nicer place, the less qualified tenants you're going to tend to get. So have you done a rent study and how do you compare? Second, what is your criteria? I think I see down here a little bit further. It was like 600 credit score. That's decent. That's good. Most places it's 650, but 600 works in a lot of areas. No felony, no eviction. Not too much to ask. The felony thing, some states don't even let you ask that anymore. So make sure you know it's legal in your area. 3x income is going to kill you every time. I don't know if any of my tenants make 2x or 2.5x their rent. They have roommates or they get in a relationship with somebody, right? So it's very rare, especially with a 600 score, to have 3x the income. So I don't check income at all because then you lose cosmetologists, bartenders, waiters, people who make the majority of their income through tips, who tend to be great tenants, or people who do under the table jobs or get, I guess those incomes would count if they get child support, alimony, palimony, all the other ways that you can take advantage of your partner in this world, or ex-partner, whatever. Yeah, I think 3x is probably the thing that's going to cost you that. If the credit score is low, what's the credit history? Is there a reason in the last year, year and a half that isn't repeatable or isn't probably going to happen again? Can they have a co-signer? The evictions thing, no, don't budge. I'd rather have an empty place than somebody that had an eviction. And so if you do the rent study and you're at or below area average rent before you lower rent, I would offer a concession. Take this from the page of the bigger apartment complexes, half off first month's rent, something like that, that might entice people. Could be time of year. School just already started. People don't like to move now. So are you one of the people, Chenda, who'd invested because it's a good school area, which is one of the criteria I specifically target not to invest in for a few reasons. One, they move certain times of the year. Two, you're dating yourself as soon as the kid is out of a certain bracket of school, probably going to lose a tenant where I have tenants that were in the property 26 years. I purchase it. They're still there. One of them passed away, but they were still there till then. You don't have tenant turnover if, and as much as if you invest in a good school district. That's one of the negatives to that. Dennis, howdy, good to see you. Blazer Jeremy, is that because you have nice jackets or you like to toke? You have to let me know. My unit is cheapest in town that includes electricity with rent. Okay, yeah, yeah. The 3x thing, I think that's one that's going to get you. Do you accept Section 8? How do you compare to what Section 8 would pay? Something that's impacted by inflation as well. Off to another REI meetup, Jason. Cool. Let us know how it goes. Harold, Rob, Michelle, howdy. Good to see everybody. BuzzTune, Ninja Vanish, Ryan, Freedom Works, Laura, Freedom Works. Did you like my hat or did you hate my hat? Let me know. It's the dark for support Elon version. 454s. That engine size? Do you ever miss working? To answer in a way that is definitely not condescending, not sarcastic, not derogatory, not in any other way negative. No. Like there isn't a word strong enough without cussing. Do I ever miss work? No. How to articulate that in a way that I'm trying to be helpful? There is so much in life that you can do every day on your schedule and on your time if money's not a factor. That the idea of needing a job to fill my time when I understood that my job was taking my time. And none of us are promised tomorrow. No, it's possible, right? Zuber felt unfulfilled, depressed after he retired. He had a couple of weeks where he said his face hurt because he smiled so much. That hasn't stopped for me. I enjoyed work, right? I don't miss it. I enjoyed the Marine Corps. I enjoyed law enforcement. I enjoyed truck driving. I enjoyed every job I had. I think the one job I had that I enjoyed the most was loss prevention, plain closed shoplifting security. Funnest job ever. But miss it? No, no. I'm trying to think of the situation that would cause me to miss it. It's a totally fair question because I know that there are some people who say, well, I regret it. There's a sentence I've said most of my life, and this is offensive to some people, and I'm just going to say it. So if you have thin skin, you can never be bored unless you're boring. Never been bored. Old guy REI, what did he say that he wants somebody to share? Did I miss it? I missed it. Laura, howdy. Good to see you here. Freedom works for the businessman, not the politician. Yes, there you go. Let's go Dodgers. I was on Dodger Stadium when I was on Little League. REI Jared. Howdy, y'all. Cost of living allowance. There you go. Oh, well, it is allowance. Okay, cool. Freedom Works. There is great real estate knowledge inside the ownership structure of the LA Dodgers. There you go. I really like how the last season of Ballers, Wayne Johnson, the show was about bringing a team to Vegas, which I think ultimately ended up actually in real life happening. Rich, CJ, howdy, money. People don't trust the current generation LLMs based AI for reasoning. They lack the sophistication. Soon agent-based architecture should help in that regard. Outside of my realm, I'm thoroughly impressed with what it's doing so far. Just in case the evil AI overload is listening, I've been supportable the whole time. Dennis, nice Fallout hoodie. Thank you. It's got everything on the back about Fallout too. I'm going to trade it in for something new, so I'm going to be looking for something different here soon. What is it that I don't like about this? There's something I don't like about this jacket. I forget. It's comfortable, but there's something I don't like. I just don't remember. I do like that it's Fallout. I play a more than I ever should. Fallout VR. So if you have VR, Fallout and Skyrim are the two places I get to spend the most time. I liked Zenith for a while, but is dead. It died. Nobody plays. John, howdy. When you were starting out, did you get your units rent ready yourself, painting, repairs, etc.? How did you handle that? And that is a great question. I was working full time, had 3 kids, single parent, didn't have a lot of money to just hire people to do everything. So I got really familiar with the Thumbtack app. Is that around when I started? Let me make sure I'm being clear here. No. Originally, I made a mistake and I went to an investor friend of mine and asked for handyman references and got some really bad ones. And then worked with them for a few years. The idea was when I first started out, I needed to find handymen, not contractors, right? Contractors can do such large jobs where the margin of profit is so big that my jobs weren't worth their time unless they charged too much. Versus I wanted a handyman who just needed to make somewhere between 30 to 50 bucks an hour to do work. And that includes travel time, shop time, and everything. So I wasn't trying to pay him less. I just needed somebody that's the level of their skill. So unless it had something to do inside the electric box or on the roof or maybe a major plumbing thing, like I've had handymen swap water heaters, know what's legal in your state and what their background and what licensure is, where the water heater is located to, and then it'll pass inspection. That's what matters. So several handymen, and in the beginning, I actually would hire them for jobs and work next to them. So when I could, I would, as I was working and raising the kids and always have the time. But I hired one to do some deck repair. I'm out there, I'm learning how, okay, what's the structure of a deck? And what do you mean wood can't touch dirt, and learn all these things. And I go, okay, this is how long it should take. This would be a fair price. The more I did for that, the more comfortable I was hiring somebody to do something. Like I'll go swap out lights. I'll go, especially on a house hack. I learned drywall on my first duplex. My unit had like 72 holes punched in the wall and door handles punched through the wall because the tenant was mad that the guy sold. The other unit was rent ready. So I rented out the other side, moved into one that needed a bunch of drywall work, and I got really bad at doing drywall, just good enough to make it rentable. So I know that when I have drywall work done, I'll hang drywall, I'll frame stuff. I don't like to because I'm lazy, but I can save money that way. And then I'll hire somebody for tape, mud, texture, prime. I usually paint. I don't mind painting. Yes, there is some detailed painting. It'd probably be better to hire a painter for, but I kind of enjoy it. You'll develop a paint wardrobe. Like these are the clothes that have some paint on them. So I make sure I get a bunch of paint on there so that people know I'm painting. I'm not just sloppy. So I'll still paint. When's the last I've hired somebody to paint a tenant turnover unit earlier this year. So I don't always paint. Painted here, painted the exterior here. So I handled that. I still do it. I'm this weekend. I got a call from a tenant, and he sent me a video. If I had the video, I'd play it. The what's it called? The top of the toilet tank was leaking, so the seal on the bottom leaked. Tenant sends me a thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can go swap out a toilet, it's 2 bolts, and turn off the water. Right? Like it would take me 20 minutes. 20 minutes to go buy one. 20 minutes to put it in. 30-minute round trip. I could totally go do that. What am I doing? I'm playing World of Warcraft. What do I have better to do that? Nope. I reach out to my handyman. who I've referred to several people here. Philip does amazing work. Super easy job. I go, hey, this month we come to an agreement on the price. He goes, he buys the toilet, he puts the toilet in, tenant's happy. It was all done within like 3 hours from when he sent the video. Pay him, tip him, and now in December, when I leave for Thailand and I'm gone for 3 or 4 months, he'll actually answer the phone because I hired him for easy jobs so he could make money. More likely to answer the phone. I've got like, Oscar, Philip, Ken, 3 people that I've hired for simple, easy jobs and some hard ones, right? That will answer the phone while I'm out of the country. That was how I started. That's how I'm doing it still. Some of the handymen that I worked with, I hire now through Thumbtack, like Oscar, hire him to do a couple things, really small ones. And I go, okay, how did he interact with the tenant? How was the work? How was his communication? Went amazing. Hire him for the next thing, then hire him for a huge thing, and it went well. And then recommend him to everybody once I've kind of done the control group tests with him. Tipping is nice, but the best thing you can do for your handyman, your contractors, your agents, your lenders is referrals. So, yes, if I see some of you in the chat who I've referred these guys to, I appreciate it when you say thank you. I am trying to help you, right? I've referred a guy a couple of times who's done some really bad work, and I'm embarrassed that I did that because life spiraled out of control and he dipped out on my last job too. So sorry about that, but I try to hire them for 3 or 4 jobs till I go, okay, this guy's good. Now I can recommend him. So it's the benefit is the recommendation to the handyman to increases my opportunity to work with them in the future. Also gets you somebody of quality to work with who I've usually vetted. Mark, aloha. Aldair, Josh, howdy. Inflation is a requirement for American retirement. Oh, that's good stuff. I like it. That's awesome. Wayne Wong, don't forget to hit the like button every time you do. An angel gets its wings. And somebody retires before Millennial Mike. Ben, howdy. Wife and I are in house hack number 2. Congratulations. Baby on the way. Congratulations. We went from living in a 2-1 to a 5-2. We are technically spending $400 a month from cash flow standpoint. From where we were in house hack 1, this house hack is a great fit for our family, and I don't see us moving out due to the great family fit. We are still open to it. Since we wouldn't house hack, we wouldn't need to pay way more capital for the next deal, which means way more time until next deal. What would you advise for us to not slow to a halt? So the go-to is generally always going to be, well, if you want to go faster, house hacking is the way. It was 2 years for me to acquire the first house hack. And then it was 2 years for me to acquire the first investment purchased property. How much can you save? And remember, saving is not spending less than what you do. Saving is increasing your income. So what ways do you have to increase your income? Is it a career change, company change, learn a skill, grow a side hustle? Can you do things to increase your cash flow without impacting your current house hack, right? Contact your insurance companies and say, hey, I would like to raise my premium or my deductible to $5,000 or $10,000 because I don't really ever plan on using insurance. Maybe bring your premium down. Have you binder strategied your tenants? Are there ways to look at the house that you're in? And right, I lived in a 4-2 when I was going through the police academy, and I rented a room out to a young couple for free just for live-in daycare, because that made me more money than I would have made if I charged them rent and didn't get the daycare out of it. Like, that was way before being an investor. So what can you do to increase your savings, which is twofold, right? Increased income, decreased spending, which is how the house hack is so powerful. I wasn't making a lot and I had a lot of bad debt. So the house hacking was like the path that would work for me. If I didn't do that, I don't know that I'd have my first property yet and still be looking at another 20 years of work to retire pretty poor. So house hacking was important. You've done it twice. That's huge. I only did it twice in the first 8 years, right? So then the element you're missing is time. How much time? Yeah, it's going to slow down because now you have to save the down payment. Check with different lenders, look into seller financing, look into, what you can do to increase your income. Like, all of these are like different angles to come to the same thing of increasing how much you've saved for the next purchase. Watch lending options. Sometimes there's 10% down products out there instead of 20 on an investment property. Look into the option of a second home that is then turned into a rental legally. Figure out from your lender what's required. Is there anyone in your immediate family that you could purchase a place? Like my brother purchased a place that I then moved into. So it's a family living there. So you get owner occupied lending, but he was actually purchasing it. So he got the 100% equity. I just got to rent it basically. This was a long time ago. That would move into a property to get you the owner occupied down payment and interest rate, and you have family moving in there. Again, transparently tell the lender what you're doing. A lot of options there. And it doesn't slow you to a halt, it slows you to a crawl. 2 years down, the down payment, buy the next thing. Now you've had 2 years for opportunity to maybe refinance to a better rate, maybe get rents up, maybe get your insurance premiums to a better rate, maybe add a closet to turn a den into a bedroom to increase rent on one of your rentals, whatever these ways are that you can increase your income, and then acquire the next one that also cash flows. Because it was about the 6 year mark that income snowball kicked in, where first rental had 6 years of rents opportunities to increase. The duplex had 4 years of possible rent increases. The next duplex had 2 years. And then when I was purchasing, so right about that 5.5, 6 year mark, all of a sudden I was like, wow, I'm making more money off my rentals than I was making as a cop. It was a huge change. How many years are you in that you've already got 2 house hacks down? That would be follow-up. J Mass, howdy. New property with existing tenants. We just discovered they have a dog after they called about furnace not working. How would you proceed? In our other properties, we do accept pets with a $500 pet fee. They are already in the property. What's in your existing lease? Is it a service animal, or have they gone onto the website and spent the $5 to print out the form that says it's a service animal? That it probably isn't, because you can't charge anything extra for those. I generally allow them, right? What's the deposit when you bought the property? The title company will send you the deposit that was already there. Was there a pet fee charged from the previous owner? Does that lease include pet rent? When you renew, so here's how I would probably handle it. Purchased a property where they had pets, they were paying, I pay the water bill, and they were paying a very low amount for water. And there might have been some other factor too, but I'm just summing it up for your question. The 2 months in, I did the binder strategy for the rents. Okay. And then generally 2 years after the binder strategy, I won't increase rents. So 2 months later, once I decide I want to keep the tenants, binder strategy, have a rent increase. For 2 years, I even tell them in this meeting, hey, I'm probably not going to raise the rent for 2 years. We're going to actually keep the rent the same. But next year, we're probably going to talk about what your water cost is, because my cost for water is more than you're paying. And maybe we'll have to talk about the pets too, because I usually charge a fee for that. So that first year, they're adjusting to the rent increase. That's what the binder strategy is for, because I want the rents where I want them, because that kind of helps set area average rent more than pet rent does, more than utility cost does. What are you getting for rents? Then, and also your rental income coming in can affect your debt to income ratio for lending, right? And they might not count pet rent, they might not count utility income, because that's supposed to be balanced out by utilities. Then the first year in, we go back and we go, okay, so it's normally this much for a pet. It's usually a $500 deposit. Since you're already renting here, why don't we make that 200? Just add to your deposit because there's a pet. And then the pet fee going forward, the pet rent is going to be $25 a month, whatever you're comfortable with. What's normal for your area? I've got tenants with pets where I don't charge anything extra and don't have an extra deposit for it, because they already had it when I purchased it and they were there and I just left them alone. That's an option to do that. I don't know that I would do that and a rent increase the same year, because the goal with the binder strategy is not just to get the rent where you want it, but to have happy tenants. And I allow pets because it does a few things. One, I've had one pet damage in a decade. I've had tens of thousands of dollars in kid damage. I had thousands of dollars of kid damage this year. I have 2 properties with kids in it, and it was on one of them, and it was kid damage. So I wish we could charge kid deposit and kid rent. We don't, but we can do that for pets. So don't know that I'd rock the boat. I would binder strategy, get the rents where you want them, maybe adjust that next year. And then my chat moved, which I appreciate. That means there are questions coming in. And I keep going fast because it looks like a bunch of questions came in, which I really appreciate. Ben, I think I know you'll say, but always appreciate the advice. Thank you. Or at least for James, Jared, I. Question for the people in the comments. When in growth mode, what do you recommend the target equity position be? Loan to value, Dion didn't cash out refi or HELOC, so wanted to ask you also. I will go through those as we go. My goal was 70% loan to value, and since I was acquiring new properties with 20% down, it was pretty much easy to stay at 70% loan to value until I retired. Then I dropped it to where I want 50, but I'm at like 30. So I probably should add some debt. Ugh. I'll know how. Jason Hartman calls it inflation-induced debt destruction. Okay, close enough. I still give him credit because I think it's probably the first time I heard it. I was like, yeah, that's a thing I've been benefiting from and didn't know it. JasonHartman.com. Thank you for putting that in there. Ryan, I appreciate it. Money. Dion. Maybe not hate each other, but rather question and discuss the point of view. I am happy to debate people, but I'm also willing to hate somebody. If somebody says America's not the greatest country ever, all right, sure, we can find all kinds of data to prove that we're pretty low on education, we're pretty low on debt, we're pretty low on income. There's all these things we're not the greatest ever. But if somebody says America's not a great country, so we should open the borders and let everybody in, that isn't discussion. That is actual impact to the young ladies who have been impacted by the illegal immigrants that were let out of prisons to be brought across the border. We have to hate to take action. Right? All that's required for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing, good people to do nothing, right? The doing nothing thing is over. JMS, in growth mode, would you buy properties and finance them with a DSCR loan, making $300 a door? It's a good question. Per door metric means almost nothing. I say almost nothing because it doesn't mean nothing. I have a minimum. I would want to make at least $100 a door when I buy something, but that's just because less than that, it's kind of not worth the hassle of having a tenant or the risk to manage the property, right? But what I would do is how much are you out of pocket, right? What is your cost to acquire? Because this is the metric to get your yield, or what people call in real estate, cash on cash return on investment. So it's not per door. And I would use DSCR. I've used all conventional so far, purchased one cash, made a mistake and paid one off. But I've made some offers with DSCR loans on a property I was going to buy. Didn't end up getting it. Couldn't come to terms on that property. So I'll totally use DSCR. And especially with Convoy home loans and Velocity Mortgage going up to 8 or 10 units, fixed rate, 30-year debt, DSCR is way better than conventional, capped at 4 units. All mine are 4 units or less. So on those, I was specifically looking at DSCR loans. But it's not a $300 per door. And here's the math equation for you, JMS, to write this down. We are at the, where are we at? There should be a timer on here. 53-minute mark. 53 minutes is when I said this. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. That gets you a percentage, a yield, or a cash on cash return. So if you invest $100,000 to buy a property, put $100,000 down on a $400,000 duplex, and you make $10,000 in profit, right? So you take out principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and you take out setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. What's left is profit. Like you take out all the expenses and set aside money for future expenses. What's left every month is your profit. Times that by 12. That'll tell you how much you make every year. Now, if you make $10,000 in profit, that's your annual profit divided by your $100,000 cost to acquire, gives you a 10% yield, right? That's the basics. It's a little more detailed than that because it's $100,000 down. You got closing costs. How much did you spend to make it rent ready? So it's closing costs, or it's down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs. That's what it cost to acquire, is all three of those. What's your profit per year divided? So a 10% yield, or a 5% yield, or a 20% yield. So right, like $300 a door didn't tell us anything because we didn't know how much it cost. Because if you buy a property with a VA loan and you're going to make $300 a door and it's zero out of pocket, it could be a good deal. What if you had $5 billion with a B and you purchased a property with one door and it made $300 a month. That's not a good investment, right? That's not even a recognizable percentage of a return. So, and I did obviously a very stupid thing that would never happen. So that's the first thing. The $300 per door doesn't tell us much because we don't know how much you spent. So it's how much do you invest or move into the property versus how much you're going to profit. That gets you annual profit divided by cost to acquire. It gets you a yield. Now, a yield of 5%, 10%, or 20% doesn't even tell if it's good. You have to study your market for like 60 to 90 days, right out of the Zuber's one rental at a time book, 3-4 months maybe. What is most deals here are going to lose money, right? In other words, people would buy them. Like it's never easy to buy property. So if you look at 100 deals, 80 of them are going to lose money. It's the Pareto rule, 80-20. 20% might make some money. What do they make? What's the average of the ones that will actually make money? If almost every deal in an area will get you 30% on a yield, 20% is not good. But it sounded good because it was the biggest number I said earlier. I studied my market, and for a long time, I could find 7 or 8%, 20% of the time. So I hunted for tens, right? The idea is learn area average, beat it. And for the first couple of years of making the Three Amigos videos with Michael Zuber and the Lumberjack Landlord, we all said, you want to do this so that you get a good deal. Like, you know, the average, you beat it, you get a good deal. And then Matt, the lumberjack, who's smarter than me, like tenfold, he clarified it when he says, that's not really what it's to protect you from getting a bad deal. And that resonated. If you know the area average of the deals that would make money and you do better than that, more than likely, that's not a bad deal. I hope that helps. It was a great question, and it kind of tells me where you're at in the process, right? Because we start out with, how many doors do you have? Like door count matters. And we'll go through like education here. So in kindergarten, we go, if you have 100 doors, you're probably doing better than if you have 10 doors, right? And so how many doors do you have? That's kindergarten. And then somewhere around middle school, 5th or 6th grade, I think that's middle school, you go, because it's been a minute, even my kids are out now. You go, wait, if you have 100 doors, but you're losing money every month, that's not as good as 10 doors. I'd rather have 10 doors losing money than 100, right? So how much do you make per door? You were kind of the middle school question. Please don't be insulted by this. It's just how the math breaks down. When you get to high school, we start to go, oh, what's my yield, right? How much did I invest to get this per door per month or whatever? That's my yield, right? That's high school. And when you graduate high school and you get into actual real investing, when you're at collegiate level, whether you joined the military, got a job, or went to college, this is the point where we have to actually make life decisions and it impacts us. This is when you realize math is this much of the decision, because you have to go, like we do in the members only groups. This is what we actually do. We look at a property. Somebody brings in a property, and if no one does, I'll bring in one of mine, which I hope to not do because I don't want to buy a property and I'll probably find a good deal. But we look at somebody's property and we go, okay, what's the physical aspects of the area, right? Are there economic drivers around here? Is there commuting distance around here? You can go to, we don't do this, but you can go to uhaul.com, check where the trucks are going to see if the population is growing or shrinking, because that's not a metric that I use. I use economic drivers. You can check crime. The way we would do this is possibly, contact property managers. Would they manage a property in a certain area? Contact the non-emergency police number and say, hey, can I talk to an officer for a minute and say, is this a safe area? I'm planning on moving there, right? Don't say I'm going to invest there because they might not like investors. But if you're going to plan on moving there, they'll tell you the good and bad areas. So this is a way to do this. So we check the physical aspects of the area, including like wet zones, what insurance would be required. Then we check the physical aspects of the property, right? Chester, for a long time, really wanted, and I totally get it, because Joe Asamoah invests in the DC area. He rents to Section 8. He does large bedroom places. Chester really had his mindset on, I want 5 or 6 bedrooms. I want 4 or 5 bathrooms, and I want to rent by the room. This is how the math works. And you look at several deals, and what seemed to blow up almost every deal that math-wise would have been great was parking. The parking didn't match his strategy. So then we look at, does it match your strategy? Is there parking? Are there washer dryer hookups? Are there these elements that will help me limit tenant turnover? Right? Is it by a noisy thing? Is it under power lines? What could turn tenants off from wanting to rent here? Are there bars in all the windows of every house around there? So physical aspects of the property. So we have run the math. We looked at the physical aspects of the area, physical aspects of the property. That's how this progresses. You go kindergarten, how many doors? Middle school, how much per door? High school, what's your yield? When you graduate and you start investing, It's understanding math is a tiny little percentage of this, a very important part that we spend a lot of time mastering. And then what's the area? What's the property? How does this fit my portfolio? When I was first starting, I didn't want to own 3 duplexes on one street. What if Wilcox Farms closed down in Yelm? They employed like 1,300 people, which they did. They closed down the dairy side and went to just eggs. And they went from 1,300 to like 100 employees right around the time I went to work for law enforcement. So yay. Um, that hit that town hard. What if all of my properties were in Yelm instead of one house? And then my duplex was in Parkland, and then my fourplex was in Spanaway, and I'm about 10 miles apart on each one of these properties, so that several different economic drivers would have to be impacted. Like a BRAC would have to happen, and the JBLM would close, or the port could go on strike, or whatever. So I'm spread out. And once I had 5, 6 properties, larger portfolio, I would absolutely buy this duplex and the one right across the street, because now it doesn't matter to me as much. So based on your portfolio, how does this property's everything match your goals? Right. So that was a great question because it led us down a lot of information that came out at the 53-minute mark. All night hider, hating actions is okay. Hating someone's being is questionable. Maybe it's the Marine in me. You have to have a us versus them switch, because you can't go to another country and have them go, this has no physical impact on the United States, but you're going to unalive some people and plant some flowers in the desert because of the petrol dollar. We have an agreement with Saudi that we will protect the oil interests of Kuwait, where Iraq invades, and you're actually going to go there and do some unpleasant things that you have to be able to include hate in your actions. Maybe I'm using too strong a word. I don't know. It's me. Ryan, you can be the voice of reason. Imagine someone saying that, because I've met you, and I know that that's not how you would see yourself. Sometimes. Angel R. I had a tenant like Oculus, get rid of them. There you go. Dennis. Is there ever a scenario where it could work to move out of primary house, get another house at 1,000 or less mortgage, then rent out your previous house at a loss? Alligator save 500. I don't like alligators. Zuber did a cash out refinance on his first property to buy 2 more and turn the first one into an alligator, but all 3 aggregate were cash flow positive. So I could see that as cash flow positive. Don't know that I would do it. I moved out of my house into an apartment and rented the house out at break even because I didn't understand that break even is losing because I wasn't setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. And that I rented to the wrong person. And all those fun experiences in the first year lost money. 2, get rental income on my tax returns. 2, get time in the new field. To like get around my debt to income ratio. Like this was all the goal, and then turned into making that house profitable. So if you move out and your one place becomes negative and the place you're moving into is cash flow positive, how do they balance out together? I'd have to, next time, Dennis, bring it up in like the members when we're on Zoom together. Maybe we can go through like literally how this works. That'd be great. Because overall, would I do it? I don't think I would do it, turn anything into an alligator. Yeah. Cash flow positive move every time I've house hacked. Because you don't know if you're going to go through an eviction, how long it's going to take to get tenants out, like all these other things. So what if you have 2 properties that aren't performing? I wasn't making a lot. Right when I started investing, I was making $17 an hour. Right? So this was like 2010. So it's not like in the 90s or 80s, right? This was 14 years ago. So I didn't have the money to handle that many things going wrong at the same time. Maybe you make more than me. Still don't know if that's smart though. All right, Jared. In Oregon, we have bears, mountain lions, elk, and deer, and liberals. Wow. I don't know if I'd stay. Dennis, I'll have to send you the article about the scuba diver in South Carolina having a nasty encounter with an alligator. I think it's safer to dive in the ocean around here than lakes. Yep. That's a great reel going around of how do you know if there's alligators in, like, it's somewhere in Louisiana. The lady goes out and she splashes her hand in the water. She says, "This, my hand, it's wet. That means there's alligators." I was like, "Yep." The weirdest thing of scuba in the Puget Sound is the squid or octopus or whatever they are, that I don't like things that move faster than me. Right. So it's not like I'm afraid of spiders. Jumping spider moves faster than me. I don't like that. Don't mind snakes, but when they can strike, when they're coiled at a point where they can strike and move fast, I don't like that. But I'll totally pick a snake up and play with it. But man, those things can move really quick. And why is it always around your wrist? What's that about? All right, Jared. Speaking of alligators and investing, what do you call an alligator detective? An investigator. There you go. That's dividend Dave level dad joke. Good job. All right, Jared. I think the safe loan to value depends a lot on other sources of income and reserves. There you go. In retirement from W-2 and small portfolio, I like being more conservative. I did too. If your cash flow and reserves are large, lever up. Yeah, because I don't want to be under levered either, right? That's what I think. I think I'm under levered right now. REI Jared. Zuber would say no, alligators, I agree, going into the economy we are in and headed for. Okay, Julie Anderson. Howdy. Inflation is my guilty pleasure. It is mine too. It's so weird to put this into words that you go, okay, eggs went from $2 to $5 a dozen. But cash flow went from 17,000 to 21,000. 4 extra thousand a month without really doing much. Does the 250 to $3 in eggs matter? Yes, to the working person. This is why inflation's bad. Liz, howdy. How can one accurately conduct a rent study? What should we be tracking and looking for? And how long to understand the rental market in an area? Are you doing this by city, zip code, neighborhood? Great question and great points. Clarifications there. So the city, zip code, neighborhood depends on the level of population. I own a duplex in McKenna, Washington. When I purchased it, there was about 600 people living there. Now there's like 480. So percentage-wise, people go, oh, it's shrunk so much. But no, it's like one unit deployed from the base. So for McKenna, it's region, like that section of the county. But if you invest where Section 8 goes completely by zip codes, and there's like 30 zip codes in a county, I would break it down a lot closer than that. When Zuber chose Fresno, he picked a specific zip code, specific market type of rental. So let me see if I break it down. I've got Thurston County. Do I separate those? Yeah, I've got the rural Thurston County, then the city Thurston County. So there I go by city and rural. And then in Pierce County, I'm mostly unincorporated city. Then Port Orchard, I'm in the city limit. So I kind of do it by the city area, depending on population. The more populated, the more I would dial it down to probably zip code and maybe even then just neighborhood. Because you should know the neighborhoods for your rent study of where you avoid. And I know everybody in the comments right now would know if I name two things, there are two areas that I don't invest in. Now I'm also in Kitsap County and I'm learning the parts of Bremerton to avoid. So I don't know those by heart yet. But in Pierce County, it's McKinley Street. Everything within 3 blocks, either side of McKinley, not me. In Thurston County, it's 301 T Street in Tumwater. Anything within a quarter mile of that place, I don't know. Wouldn't know. So I know my markets that well. So yes, you want to study how populated is it and what are the neighborhoods. I do break it down that way. But then here's how you do a rent study. The hardest thing to determine is in an area, which platform is used the most, right? Some places, generally college towns, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace are probably going to be used more than Zillow or Trulia or Hotpads or anything like that. You get into a more military place, it's probably going to be more Zillow and apartments.com because they advertise on the bases. So the people in their new family orientation brief get a little thing saying, here's how you find a house. So how is it advertised in that area? So for me, originally it was apartments.com because it was cozy.co was used a lot. We're Pacific Northwest. Cozy was a Canadian from Canada company, and it was used a lot around here. It was purchased by apartments.com, used that for a couple of years. Now Zillow overtook them and I switched to Hemline, so it uses all of them. But when I'm doing a rent study, I'm not looking on Hemline. I'm looking for like a renter in my area who now mostly goes on Zillow. So which one's used mostly in your area? You're gonna have to find that out. Ask several people. Maybe join some tenant groups and say, what does everybody use to find rentals around here and see what they say. You can't go to Rentometer and go, here's the snapshot, because sometimes I've seen them off by 30%. Sometimes they're fairly accurate. And sometimes it's the 3-month one is accurate because they look at historical data. They go back a year, they're accurate, but sometimes it's really far off. But I do look at it. Then the rent study goes, what does Section 8 pay? So you Google fair market rents, you go to the HUD, you look up this year, your county, and sometimes that'll be broken down by zip code too. What will they pay for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom in my area? That doesn't tell you what the rent is because that also includes utilities. And sometimes that's $200 more than area average, and sometimes it's $200 less than area average, right? But it gives you another data point. Then I would go and look up basic allowance for housing, BAH. What will the military pay around this base or around this college? Because if somebody is using voc rehab or GI Bill, they get paid either 100% or 50% of BAH at E5 level in that area. What will the military pay? What does Section 8 pay? Then what platform is used? Now you go on the platform, and this is why we call it a study, not a go to Rentometer, take a screenshot, and that's what it is, right? It's a study. Minimum that I've had any kind of accuracy with is 2 weeks. I do this kind of consistently though, right? So I would even do it after I've done it for the 2 weeks. But you go on that platform that's used the most in your area, and you see what rents, what's listed. Take a sheet of paper, write down some of the more common ones. Like you'll see apartment complexes. I tend to ignore those because they'll have, what are the amenities really changing there? I'll look at them, but I don't really use them as much as I will look at, for duplexes, I'll look at townhomes. I'll look at houses. Yeah, it's houses, townhomes. There's no box for small multifamily on apartments or Zillow. It's really weird. It's frustrating. So I list as single family and I put duplex as the first, or triplex as the first, or whatever. Write down what things are renting for, and then you have to learn your area, right? Not too many people get this. And I've said it on my channel a lot. So if you watch my channel, you probably know this, but Pacific Northwest, I'll get more rent for a carport property than a garage property. Garage is turned into storage. Carport gets used. So know what's in your area. What is it? Is it a pool? Is it gas heat versus baseboard? What matters in the region that you're investing? See what rents for the most. And then you track it, because some things will be listed and they'll sit for a long time, and then they'll start to lower the rent. That means that snapshot you could have took day one was too high. Sometimes you'll see a property, it'll be listed for a couple days, and then it'll go away and it'll come back $500 more. Because they had so much interest, they realized they undershot themselves. So, but over a period of about 2 weeks, you can kind of get an idea of what things rent, what things went up, what things went down, what things sit forever, and you'll learn. So in my area in Thurston County, Washington, there is a place called, it's like Hometown Property Management or something like that. And all of the investors that I know that whenever they put up a listing, we just wait, because they're terrible at their job. I don't know, I remember the name exactly, but when it comes up and they put the little watermark in it, a 4-bedroom will rent to Section 8 for $3,000. So a 4-bedroom gets you $2,800 to $3,500 in our area. They'll list it for $1,700. So we're like, okay, I'm not listing mine. I'm going to wait 2 days. Somebody will scoop that up. The homeowner loses money because they're just trying to list and get a tenant in there. And then in 2 or 3 days, once that's gone, I'll list mine at the normal price. So you have to know what's going on in your market. And that's why studying it for a while and kind of getting to know the players. And the bigger, broader you do, the harder that's going to be. That's why you dial it down to county, city, zip code, depending on population. Thank you. Good question. REI Jared, thanks. Oculus, I am currently around 60% on one, 66 on another, and only 85 on a third. So for the 60 properties, I could cash out 75 or 80 and buy another property. I have cash reserves. Just remember, when you do that, you are decreasing the cash flow on the existing assets. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just that's why I didn't do it. Luke, 18-year, tried seller financing and had some success, but at the end of the day, I didn't want to live in the slums of Pittsburgh for it. Okay. Now I'm going to school as an electrical lineman. Good job. Get your CDL too, and saving $30,000 a year, which my dad is going to match. We will buy one property every year and we'll retire in 13 years. A good plan. Solid plan. Love it. Freedom Works Ultra MAGA for life. There you go. If we can get the religious stuff out of there, absolutely wear it everywhere. Luke, sounds like a solid plan. Especially, I mean, are you going to be a lineman in a specific area and work construction, or are you going to be a storm chaser and go do, I mean, there's a lot of ways to increase your income there. Also, I'm enjoying the journey and not stressing about meeting owners and cold calling one day every day. Yeah, that's not what I did either. All mine are from the MLS. It's super boring. Takes a decade, and then there's every decade after that's amazing. Red Berserker. Howdy. Chester's back now that I'm done talking about him. Oculus. Thank you. What part of Atlanta are you in, Rob? I regret retiring, or at least that's what I tell myself at work. I can almost follow your logic. Freedom works. Retirement did not work for me, or worked way too well. Wealth building journey. Income and purpose fulfillment are two reasons for a job that I could reasonably think of. Financial freedom replaces the W-2 wage, allows one to have a personal purpose, no job necessary. Yeah, there's so many things you can do that are more important than your job, right? I mean, it could be compensated, it couldn't not. So, REI Jared, I have to go back to work. I was cheating and stealing from the company. There you go. Large language models. Yeah, that's true. I love there's no way I'd be able to articulate it, but the box AI theory, where the AI is in the box and characters come in, and the AI's job is to match the characters. And maybe they'd say it's Chinese language that I wouldn't speak, but I could, as AI, I can match this with that. So you can get the words to come out looking a certain way, but does the AI actually know what the characters mean? So the large language models that can match the words. Your question, what this is the most common recurring thing that looks that way, but does it understand it? Money, yes, the AI overlords are listening. There you go. Angel R, how much did you spend on your first rental property with down payment and closing costs? $15,000 down payment, was 5% down. Closing costs, I paid for appraisal, which was like 600, inspection, which was like 450 at the time. They've gone up since then. Uh, I didn't spend anything on the other unit except for coated locks and motion sensor lights, a couple $100. I spent some money on mine, but it's all drywall work, so it was all my labor. I don't know what I would have spent if I hired somebody for that. Frank, 72 holes repaired in a house. Tape, texture, mud, paint, all that. For me, it was like a month. Just every night when I got home, I'd do another one. Uh, so yeah, I had saved $28,000 in the 2 years with overtime, side hustle, towards buying that first property. And that gave me the reserves that I needed. That gave me the down payment, everything. Yeah, it took a while. Oculus, have you tried Angie, formerly Angie's List? Appears to be similar to Thumbtack. I have not, because I heard so many bad reviews. Not sure why. Just haven't. I just had such good luck with Thumbtack, and I've heard some people have had bad luck with some Thumbtack. BuzzTune, Mikey, I see you did a super chat. Was there a question here? I want to make sure I get it. Just as that number one Fox. There you go. Course calls beginning next week. I believe great hearing the various discussions. Yes, course calls through the month of November. If you're in the course, every Tuesday after the live, we're going to get together on Zoom. I might get StreamYard eventually, but right now it's still Zoom. We interact. Some of them might be recorded. You'll know when you come in. Some of them won't. So we can talk about those things that are in gray area, like my conversation this morning with Curtis that I couldn't set in a text or an email, but I could call you and talk about it. That kind of stuff gets talked about in the course all through the month of November. And course was reduced to 447. So if you're in the course already, you get free access. You don't have to buy anything. There's no boot camps or anything. You just show up, be there if you want to be. And it's portfolio deep dives, strategy, next moves. Deconstructing Dreams, a financial journey. Love the name still. Howdy from Reno, Nevada. Sounds like a real place. I may like a candidate better than the other, but knowing either way, I will be making more money is a great feeling. Yeah. It's the same thing when I ran the CDL school. I just like, okay, we got, I don't remember. So Obama was like 08. So his second term, Obama or somebody else, and then Trump, and then when did Biden go? It's 2020. So I was before I retired. So I'd gone both sides. And you just figure out which strategy makes money with this person, this type of person in office. Brian, howdy. I bought a duplex 2 weeks ago and closing on the fourplex on Halloween. Nice. You gonna wear a costume to signing? Because that could freak out the they call it notary. The duplex is getting repairs. The fourplex is fully rented, getting the first rent in a few days. That's when it will feel real. Yes, I bet. So you're closing on Halloween. Interesting. Because I like to close somewhere between the 3rd and the 9th of the month, because then you get the prorated rents for that entire month, but you don't have a whole mortgage payment the next month when you get that month's rent too. Don't care if I close like the day and the mortgage is due. It doesn't matter, but I just like to. It's kind of cool. Love hearing your story. It's motivating too. I love hearing yours too. I mean, 2 properties that quick. That's cool. I'd like to hear about the deals. Freedom Works. Painting is calming and soothing. Yes. Yeah. Why have a gym membership when you have to? Who's that? Somebody said that in a video one time. When you have to simulate hanging drywall when you can just go hang drywall. Uh, my chat moved, which again, I appreciate it. Let get through these quick because they're getting pretty far behind. Hit the like button or a donkey could get choked. No donkey was harmed in the making of this poll. I hate hugging toilets. I'm not a germaphobe, but hell no. That's what trash bags are for, man. Put a trash bag around it. Duct tape it. Sebastian, howdy. Sagamoso, cool name. Let's see that one. I think in a minute. Angel R, now that you're retired, how do you project your time from people asking you favor? Got asked for that today. Two things. One thing, when you're a sociopath, you get asked to do sociopathic things, and when you are retired, people think you have nothing but time freedom. I'm always busy. I'm diving, I'm paddleboarding, I'm working on a rental, whatever. So what have I said yes to? I helped Brian move, David do a roof. David helps me on my stuff, so helping my brother doesn't count because he probably does more for me than I do for him. No, it's pretty easy. Like, I mean, the really cool thing is when you're working and you're interacting with everybody and they're your family, which is a load of crap. You interact so much, they're like, hey, this weekend we're doing this. What do you got going on? Or you have a pickup truck. What do you got going on? Right. But once you retire and you never talk to those people again, it doesn't happen. So it just the interaction with those people becomes so less that I'm now interacting with people who have similar likes and goals. So if Curtis calls me and says, hey, I closed on my triplex and I don't know, putting in locks or whatever. And I go over there and I'm like, hey, I'll help you put this lock in. That's not helping him do something. That's getting to see somebody make an investment. It's a totally different experience than somebody that I used to work with calling and saying, hey, we're doing this today and we need help, which doesn't happen because that would mean they would contact somebody who doesn't work there anymore. And when you stop working at a company, you become worse than a stranger. They're more likely to see I'm more likely. I actually have homeless guy walking by on the street going, oh, are you moving in here? Nope, we're cleaning it up. Oh, I'd do some work. Great. Come over here and load this truck because it's hot. Like that actually happened. I'm more likely to hire a stranger than I would be to call a friend for help. When you quit working at a company, a stranger hasn't judged them, would actually maybe possibly ask questions about their job with interest. What do you do? Let me quantify you somehow. When you worked at a company and you were part of the mission statement and you dedicated your life to doing what that company did and you thought it had enough purpose to justify you selling your life 1 hour at a time, and you have made the conscious decision to stop working there, in their mind, you have said with your actions, which speak louder than words, what you do isn't good enough for me. I'm out of here. They're more likely to call a stranger or a coworker than somebody who retired. That's a great question because I don't know that I'd put those two together before. Because has anybody that I worked with called me and asked for something? I mean, yeah, they called me for a ton of work, fix this, fix that things, because I told them they could. Uh, I haven't moved anybody that I worked with since I moved. I moved since I quit working there. I moved my friend Brian once, but he helped me move too. So that's how that works. Uh, yeah, no, doesn't, it's not a problem. Brian, I'm hoping to buy more properties next year. I'm struggling to find anything that cash flows. I've been looking at PA, Ohio, South Carolina. My market is DC. That math definitely doesn't work. How is remote work impacting a little bit further out than where you're looking, Brian? That's how I found my most recent deal and a couple that I had made offers on as well. Remote work has driven up rents because they can live further out if they're only going to the office once or twice a week. But it hasn't pushed up prices because they don't want to buy because they might get called back to the office full time, right? So that was my theory that brought me out and made me find some deals. And then I watched days on market instead of being fast. I started watching things that had sat for longer and making lower offers than what they were listed at. So 2 tweaks to find deals. Chester, in my opinion, ownership is actually the American dream. I thought it was to see your enemies driven before you and hear the woes and lamentations of their women and children. That might be Conan. Oculus. Dennis struggles. Zuber says, no gators. What would you be reasons for keeping the property that you're moving out of? There you go. Ownership of cash flowing assets. Yep. Rob, did your brother rent you a house before or after you tried to kill him with a tree? He tried to kill me with a tree. I tried to kill him when he was in a tree. Totally different. And my other brother tried to take my head out and broke a hole in the trampoline with a pipe. So it was a good, close family. When you have 13 siblings, you can afford to lose one every now and then. Did your brother rent you a house before? It was after. Yeah. Dennis, I know what Zuber says about it. Just curious. There you go. Yep. Get another rental investment. That is, Dennis. Just your question. What are alternative generic concessions to consider, or should I look at concessions local to my investing market of Detroit? Look and see if in your area it's normal to say free moving truck or paid movers, half a month's rent off, cover the utilities the first month. I mean, there's a couple of different options there. And I start with concessions, then I look at criteria because the question earlier was they're not meeting my criteria. The 3x criteria is what I don't think any of my tenants hit. Don't think I hit that anywhere I rented either. So is it 2.5 or is it none? Like, I mean, I have no criteria. I don't care what they make. I've never cared what they make. I do ask for where they work so that I can have an opportunity to catch them in a lie, right? Verify employment. That's more important to me than how much they make. That's a good way to look at it, Chester. I'd have to put some thought into other ones than the ones that were top of my head there. Dan, howdy. How nice quality does your rental need to be to get maximum Section 8 value? Do granite countertops and ceramic tile increase the market value? Absolutely not for Section 8. Section 8 doesn't care. It'd be plywood. They don't care. As long as it's lacquered, right? And food grade has to pass their inspection. They don't count garages. They don't count pools. They don't count storage sheds. They don't count den. They don't count office. They don't count anything like that. Section 8 has a metric that goes, they don't count age of building. They don't count square footage. All they do is go, how many bedrooms? And these have to qualify as bedrooms. And each area it's different. Like in our area, I think it's 100 square feet minimum, which is ridiculous. And it has to be more than 70 square feet in 2 directions, which means it can't be a hallway. So it's got to be more rectangular or square shaped. Source of heat, 2 ways in and out. So forms of egress could be a door and a window or 2 doors. Ventilation in some areas, AC in some areas, heat in some areas. So know what's required in your area. Nice though can be some Section 8 can look at a property and give it a score, right? They'll grade it. And it could be in a bad area. It could be a mobile home compared to a stick built. It could be whatever their criteria is that they make up because it's run by a local. That's why Pierce County, Washington, I won't do Section 8. And Thurston County, Washington, I'm probably going to add a couple more, right? You got to know your local housing authority or nonprofit in your county that runs it and know what their deal is. So they have a scoring system to tell you what they'll pay. And if they won't pay area average rents, I don't care what their scoring system is. If I can get that rent from someone else, I'd move on to someone else. And I would take lower from Section 8 as a form of diversification, but it has to be close enough. Wombat Striker, howdy. Haven't said howdy in a while. I still usually watch at least the intro of most of your videos. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope they're helpful. Dennis, if a military member is about to PCS and they could rent out their house as an alligator and possibly come back after 3 years to move back, and do you rent it or do you sell it? This is one of the reasons why I don't like single families, because they're generally going to be an alligator. How much would they be losing? Because even break even, you're losing money by not setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, or the cost of an eviction. Yeah, I'm not a fan of keeping alligators. And that's the second time the question came up with you, Dennis. I think it's a no. I think that maybe that military member can learn that the next time they move to the next duty station, buy a house with an ADU or a small multifamily instead of getting a place that would be an alligator. And I understand I purchased a house when I wasn't an investor, and the first 10 years of ownership, it would have been an alligator. I would have lost money. I could have rented it for less than the mortgage. When I started renting it after owning it for like 11 years, because that was when I decided to move into an apartment and rent it out, I could basically break even. That makes a ton of money, but I've owned it for a billion years. It starts slow. Acquisition cost is down payment, closing costs, and make ready. Agreed. Deconstructing dreams, a financial journey, negative cash flow, as his alligators just don't make sense to me at all. I will never pay to let somebody live in a property. Doesn't matter if the gamble of appreciation is good. I'm with you there. I'm trying to think if there is a caveat, because I took a gamble. It wasn't an alligator though. I purchased a duplex where the rents were about 1,100 each side, and I forget what the mortgage was, like 1,800 or something. So set aside repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. It was basically a break. But the mushroom farm had just lost the lawsuit and was having to move out. Rents were a little low, not enough for the binder to bring them up really high. But when that mushroom farm went away, rents went up 80% in that area because a 5 mile radius smell went away. Now each side's rented out for over 2,000, refinanced to a lower rate. Mortgage is like 1,300 a month. So good deal. Gamble on that, but it wasn't a gamble because I had the legal insider trading of knowing the mushroom farm was going away. Dan, question: how much do you charge extra for pet deposit for a month? So if I buy a place and they're already living there, question came up earlier, I don't know that I would charge a new, it's not a deposit unless you're going to give it back. If you want to charge a non-refundable, it has to be a fee, because and this is very important to note in the caveman brain. A non-refundable deposit voids your entire lease, because that's not legal terminology. The definition of deposit is money that can be given back. Non-refundable means that language doesn't work. Severability means the entire lease is void. So a non-refundable pet fee, pet rent. I do $250 for one-time pet fee if somebody's acquiring a pet or moving in with a pet, and then $25 a month pet fee. Doesn't matter if they have one dog or seven. It's $25 a month. Good question. I do allow pets for a few reasons. Limits tenant turnover, allows me to charge more rent because there's limited places that will rent to somebody with pets. So they'll pay more. And you get the pet fee on top of that, as long as they don't go to the website and print out the little $5 form that says it's an ESA, and now you can't charge for it. Money. I'm not bitter. I'm sure California politicians would be happy to buy a property for $5 billion with one door and still make $300 for that door. It's probably true. Deconstructing dreams, pet fee 100 and pet rent 50. There you go. Good. What's normal for your area? Good thing to do is check on Craigslist, Zillow, Facebook Marketplace. What is everyone in your area doing? Try to do that or better. Brian, howdy. In your past video, you said you need 5,000 to live, so you have 18,000 in net profit right now. So 18 doors you make $1,000 per door. Is there more to the question? But right around, okay. Nope. So close. I did a whiteboard video recently where it was about, I wanted 4,000. So when it passed 16, I was able to retire. I think at the time it's called The Truth About Cash Flow. Dion Talk, search that on YouTube. It'll pop up. I'm doing a whiteboard. I was making a little over 17, but since then I've binder strategied every tenant. I moved out of a house hack and rent out that room, unit, and then rent out the unit in the place that I'm at. Now the thing's done. So 18 rental units, $21,000 in cash flow. And I want to be really clear here. It's $21,000 now. It's 21 something. That's all the rents come in. and I would whiteboard this, right? But because I want to be transparent, this you can't do this overnight, and you can't do this if you took $1 million and invested it. It doesn't work. I took $320,000 and invested it over 10 years and had the opportunity for rent increases, uh, pay one off, mistake, uh, refinance to lower interest rates, like all these things that happen over a decade. You can do this. You can't do it overnight. You can do it over a decade. But here's the result after 12 years now. 13 years? Closed in 2013. It's 11 years, whatever. It's more than a decade. 18 doors, house hacking one. So one of them I'm occupying. So it's significantly more than $1,000 a door. It's $21,000, 100 and something in cash flow. The rents come in, I pay the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That money's gone. I set aside 15% of gross rents to the reserve account. Reserve account is full, so that money's actually coming to me and going into the pile for the next investment. I don't spend it on my living style, so I wouldn't have to decrease my living if I needed that money. But 15% is being set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. What's left after that and after paying taxes, about $21,000 a month, a little bit more than that. So that's cash flow. After all the expenses, after setting aside for expenses that haven't even happened yet, after taxes, what's left that you can live on? The main reason I have a video also called Why So Much Cash Flow, and it's got a picture of the Joker there. Why so serious? Why so much cash flow? Is because I've never taken out a HELOC. I've never done a cash out refinance. I've only made the mistake of paying off one property. I recycled cash flow. I used the binder strategy to increase rents. Add the element of time. It doesn't happen quick, but it does happen in a decade. When we say, oh, I want $100 a door, sure, I want a minimum of that when I'm starting out. Most of them are 300 or 400 because I invest specifically in a high cost of living area. If I invested in Gary, Indiana, in order to have the cash flow to do what I'm doing at, say, $500 a door, I'd need what, a minimum of twice the size of the portfolio? Where I'm at, the down payment to buy a duplex would buy a duplex all cash in Gary. And then you take the rents that you would get, property management, because it's at a distance. I make more by taking what would be a complete cash purchase there and doing a down payment here on a high cost living area, because that means less properties, higher cash flow, right? The median cost of homes in Washington State went up $41,000 last year. So just sitting around, my properties made me that much money. Whereas that would be a 50% increase in Indiana. So it's not that investing in a lower cost of living area is bad. You just need more deals. And so if you're younger and you like the dopamine hit of closing on a lot of deals, sure, do that. I actually only wanted one deal every 2 years in the beginning. It's all I could handle. I was working full time. And it was like, how much work did you do when you closed on that property? I probably went with the handyman, did 2 or 3 things, and that was way too much. If I closed on a deal every month, I never would have done it. 2 or 3 days of going to work with a handyman to close on a rental, it would have killed me. But close every 2 years and go do 2 or 3 days of work while working full time, while raising 3 kids, while trying to have a life. Absolutely doable. So what's your bandwidth for the amount of work you're willing to take on? How much are you making? How much do you have to invest? Can help you determine high cost of living area, low cost of living area. Dan, question, how big or type of pet do you allow in your rental? What do you stipulate in the lease about pets and liability, pet dies, pet attacks, pet damage? So the lease explains, I'd have to go through the verbiage and what it explains. The verbiage, if I remember, this was one of the things that the attorney added, right? So one of the things I suggest, take your lease for your area to an attorney in the area where you would go through an eviction and ask them if there's any verbiage that they would want to add that would make their job easier. And one of the things they added for pets, and I forget how it was worded because I'm not a lawyer, that's why I hire a lawyer, is all pets are allowed, given that they are, and in legal v's, however they said it, legal to the area, right? So it can't be a protected animal without a permit or whatever. And that the insurance company accepts the breed. So it doesn't list the type of breeds. When a tenant applies, we ask what kind of pets you have. I take that, I call the insurance company, I say, hey, this is the type of pet, is this covered? And generally, if they go golden retriever, Australian shepherd, I don't know any breeds of cats. I just know the group of cats is called a clouder, but I don't know breeds of cats. I do have one of my favorite arguments against religion is about cats, though. Uh, See, I can piss off both sides. I'm fair. I'm equitable, like South Park. Attack everybody. Um, if the insurance company won't agree to that type of pet, then the tenant is responsible to show proof and maintain an insurance policy on that type of pet that is covered. That's what something like that's in the lease. Uh, so I don't have a limit. I do kind of jokingly say when I meet somebody, they go, "Oh, we've got dogs or whatever." I say, "Hey, if you're going to rent for me, I reserve the right to pet your pets." And if they go, "Oh, you don't want to do that," well, it's a red flag, right? Is it because it's a veteran's pet that's being trained as a service animal? Sure. Have a reason, have a story. But if it's no, they bit the last person that touched them, I don't think so. Like the movie with oh, I forget his name, the weird actor. I can't believe can't remember his name. Con Air was his name. Anyway, he it goes through the whole movie. He really likes dogs. He really likes dogs. And at one point he takes out a dog and he goes, "Yeah, I really like dogs, but that dog was an a-hole." Damn, there you go. Brian. Yes, we're right around the dog size. There you go. Landlord insurance to cover that. Deconstructing dreams. Dan, depends on the property. I will do whatever size is appropriate for the other. There you go. That's a good answer. Do I have any that are small? I do have some that don't have, I have two that don't have fences, and I clarified that too. Dan, question. If you purchase an empty home to rent it out, do you ever upgrade the windows, insulation, or other features, appliances in their function before you bought the home? So purchased one that was empty, ripped out all the gas lines here. So I upgraded that because not a fan. Know your region in the East Coast. I think it's way more affordable to have gas heat. On the West Coast, it's stupid. It's cheaper. I haven't had electric bill above $100 here. Gas bills are 300-400 bucks a month. So same amount of heat. And if you cut your own wood, it heats you twice. What was the question here? Squirrel. I have not upgraded windows unless they really needed it. Have I? And that was just one that was bad. Insulation, I have checked crawl space insulation and had a handyman fix it. I always, oh, is always true. Always except one time. New coated locks, motion sensor LEDs, and then I asked the tenants if there's anything they would like to upgrade. There is one tenant who has a flip phone. No, no kidding. How she says it, interwebs at her house. Writes out checks that I deposit. She writes like 6 months at a time. I didn't put a coded lock in. I was not about to say, you need to learn this to get into the house you already live in. So other than that, every time coded locks, motion sensor LEDs. I've replaced screens. Just buy a screen kit, go make a screen. That's pretty easy. At Lowe's, actually, check your Lowe's and Home Depot. Sometimes they have a class. Come in here on a certain day. We'll do this is how you make a screen. Appliances. Weirdly, one time I had a tenant who I knew was going to move in, and they asked for a smaller refrigerator. So one time I took a fridge out. I've replaced one that was making a weird sound, but it wasn't like upgrade. It was just because I do like the $700 or $800 refrigerator from Lowe's or Home Depot, depending on which one's closest to that rental. Chester, yes, base realignment and closure. I went to the one here. I think I said this in the thing before. I did devil's advocate. I was like, absolutely, we should close this down. Imagine how much better traffic would be on I-5, which prompted them to all come up with really good arguments not to close it down. Ben, thanks so much. Took me about 1 year from graduating to buy house hack number 1 and 2 years to buy. Got married and replaced sewer. Hey, nice. I'm sorry you went through that, and I'm not going to say if it's the married or replace the sewer. Since house hack 2 is larger than house hack 1, 1 to 5 2. Nice. Yeah, so I went from a duplex to a fourplex, which was about the same square footage. That was not really a change. Then I went from the fourplex to a duplex, which is this place is probably a little smaller, but it's waterfront. I walk down in paddleboard, I walk down in scuba, I walk down and take the ferry. And there's also like 7 bars within walking distance. Not that that's a factor at all. It's a frugal thing. I know everybody thinks I'm a raging alcoholic, but in addition to that, the best way to find good food is to find a business that makes money, not by what you're there for. right? I would never go to Jiffy Lube to have my oil changed, but I would go to a car maintenance and mechanic shop that is planning on doing future work for me to get a $22 complete oil change where the materials cost more than that because they know they're going to make money some other way. When I go out to eat at a restaurant, I look for the bars, the casinos, the golf courses, the places where they go, hey, we're going to make money in all these other ways. Let's put out some good food. Who cares about the price? Because that's not even how we make our money. And then you get good quality food at a good price, which is actually counterintuitive now that I'm retired. I should stop doing that because I'm trying to spend money. That's a hard one. Ben, my net income from real estate is actually less than when I had Hashtag 1 and 2 are both double digit cash on cash with baby coming. I think I can save 25,000 a year. There are people who don't save $25 a month. So you're doing great. Ben, could you expand more on the story of buying a house with your brother? Got out of the Marines, was homeless for a while, lived in a bus for a while, moved to Washington and moved in with my brother, and then tried to do tree work with him. And no, I love my brother. Living with somebody and working with somebody whose family ends in homicide, right? Before we got to that point, he purchased a house with me to move in so that on the loan, it was owner occupied. His money, his purchase, his property, nothing to do with me. Take me off as soon as it was taken care of. And it was a HELOC that he used to do that. So owner occupied, satisfied the lender's needs. Whatever the story was at the time, it was some lending thing they had. This was in the 90s, like a billion years ago. So he purchased a house. I got to live into it. I paid him rent. So I was no longer homeless. It was great. They really set me up to get out of the Marine Corps when I got out. Let me tell you. It's a little different now. It's a little better. It's not good. It's better, but it's not good. With Soldier for Life, lice, barracks joke, Soldier for Life SFL TAP program. I think I just duplicated the acronym there. But I was in the Marines, not the Army. What we had is you stopped dribbling the basketball, the imaginary one, and you set it down at the gate and you walked away and you said, game over. That was the help we got. And then Deconstructing Dreams, a financial journey, took back a message. Oh, no, he's gifted a membership from Chester. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is really cool. JMS, speculating rates would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, step down on a DSCR or keep it at 5% for the 5 years to get the low rate. Speculating rates would do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, step down on a DSCR. So I've always bought my rates down because I never plan on refinancing. I never plan on selling. I never plan on rates going down. I benefit from them when they did. So I've always bought them down. I don't know enough about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 DSCR thing. What's your plan with the property? Do you plan on refinancing in the future? Do you plan, how low would rates have to go for you to refinance? Do you plan on selling? How long do you plan on keeping it? How long do you plan on keeping the mortgage? You can actually run the math on this is the cost to buy down the rate. This is how much I save every month. And this is how many months it would take to get the money back that it costs to buy down the rate. It's like a literal math equation to figure out that. And since me, hoping that all of my properties perform better than my marriages until death do us part, I've always bought the rate down. Dan Hawkins, question. Do you have knowledge of renting to a foreign military trainee, pilot, or foreign corporate worker? Do I? I don't know because well, no, I check employment on ones that I've acquired. I don't. So when somebody's moving in, I do. I've had military contractors, don't know if they were foreign or US. That's how I found out the SFL TAP counselors that require a master's degree and start at $31,000 a year obviously didn't learn math in college. I have a pilot in one. I had an Air Force pilot, so American United States Air Force pilot in another. He's one of the ones that got orders and moved out. I have a pilot in another who just moved in a couple months ago. But he's American, so he's not foreign. I'm trying to think. I don't think I'd have a problem. I mean, I don't think I'd have a problem with foreign corporate worker or anything like that. So don't know that I have experience with it for sure because it hasn't been a metric I've tracked, but wouldn't be a deal breaker. Felix, howdy. Have you ever brought multiple properties on a single block? Do you think it's possible to create a Class B block with a Class C larger location? One, I don't want Class B properties, so no. But it's probably possible to do that. I know the lumberjack landlord has probably, with his size portfolio, done that. My portfolio is so small that at retirement, I had 7 properties. I've purchased one since, I have 8 whole properties. I wanted when I had 5 or less to be at least 10 miles apart so that there were several different economic drivers supplying me with tenants. I would consider it now buying on the same thing, but I wouldn't be trying to take a Class C area to a Class B area. In economic downturns, Class B tenants will look for Class C properties. I want more demand on my properties when things are bad. That's Class C. So I specifically target Class C properties. Would I buy Class D to upgrade them to Class C? I think that is what Cody is doing. Cody is doing that in Moses Lake. He's buying some places where he honestly said, we went out, did some videos. He said, yeah, when I first bought this, you couldn't walk around here with kids. And we were actually there, and this little like 8-year-old, I don't know, demons are all the same between like 4 and 12, came running up and says, oh, my tooth hurts. I went to the dentist today. And he's like, that never would have happened when I bought this place. So he has the cool neighborhood experience of improving a D to a C area where families can be. I would totally do that. Now, I don't know that I would have started that way. Definitely not while working, not while raising 3 kids, not where I might need to be the person to go and sit in a parking lot and provide security. Uh, yeah, Chester, you're going to be there 100%. I'm going to be there in Vegas. I was booking tickets the other day. Renewed passport online, much easier process than it used to be. Wow, it's crazy. You don't even have to go take pictures anymore. Just take a picture at your house, your phone, upload it. It's great. Booking tickets to Thailand, and I was going to go from here to Thailand and then Thailand to Vegas, but I realized that tickets from Thailand to Vegas cost 3 times, which is a lot, from Thailand to here, which is, Pacific Northwest. So I'm going to go to Thailand, stay there till probably beginning of February, and then come home for like a week and then go to Vegas and see you guys there at the one rental at a time event on the 15th and 16th of February. Oculus to dentist, the REI struggle. If you think there's a good chance you'd move back in a year, you can always keep it. And if you don't move back, then sell, especially if the new property cash flows. That's a brilliant answer. So you talked about it being a little bit of an alligator. What was the cash value versus the debt owed? That's a good point. Of what if you kept it for what's happening appreciation wise there? Do you know, like if you're in the Moses Lake area and you find out that there's all these plants going in, is it strategically located where that plant is going to increase the rents or increase the value or decrease it? Because that plant going into Moses Lake is a French fry factory, and French fry factories have a smell. So, but if you're far enough out, the increased work is going to increase values. But if you're close enough, the smell is going to decrease rents and probably values. There's like so many factors on keep sell. I guess I should have went, Dennis. This is my question anytime somebody says, should I keep or sell a property? And I'm sorry, hopefully you're still here because I'm sorry I didn't just, my memory is not great. You own the property that you're moving from. If the house across the street was identical and you're moving to a new duty station, but that house was for sale for the price that you paid, and you could buy it right now for that price, same price that you paid for the first one, and get the same interest rate that you have on the first one, would you buy it? If the answer is yes, I wouldn't sell. If the answer is I really probably wouldn't buy it, then maybe that leans me a little more towards the selling side. Major Sags, howdy, good to see you here. Congrats to Cody on the engagement. I totally agree. I wish I had taps queued up on my phone to play it, but I don't. Actually met Ashley, a great, very, very awesome couple. Super happy for them. I know I make marriage jokes, but they are they are doing awesome. Howdy, Cody. I see your super chat there too. Congrats on your I might have said it differently if I had known you were in the chat. Congrats on your engagement. Hope you guys are having an amazing time. And that next time you go there, you get to see the financial firefighter. But he probably would have just photobombed your engagement pictures anyways. Anyway. Julie Anderson, anger and hate are very motivating. It's useful. Very true. Anyone who knows me outside of YouTube knows that I really don't have an emotional spectrum. I just have anger subject to gradation. Native to Earth, what loan product did you use on that first duplex? Was it 5% down Fannie Mae, 5% down Fannie Mae, conventional loan? Absolutely. And then there was a couple of years where they wouldn't do that. So a lot of people went FHA, which would have sucked. But it was 5% down Fannie Mae. Cody, we should make a video and we should talk about your engagement. So let's set that up. Dan, have you ever rented specifically to college students near a campus? If not, anyone you'd recommend for advice on lease construction pros, cons? Matt, the lumberjack landlord, rents to some college students. I have some college students, but their lease is one lease. They're all on it. I don't have lease by room, which is probably the better way to do college students. Co-signers if you're doing college students because they might not have the credit you're looking for. Matt specifically doesn't do co-signers because he wants to deal with the person as an adult and not have to deal with mom or dad. I'm okay dealing with mom or dad. So what do you want to deal with? Anybody else specifically for that? I don't know. I know that Todd Baldwin in Seattle rents by the room. I don't know that he specifically goes for college students. I think there's a lot of rent by the room ways to do it that aren't college. Kind of like when everybody says, when people used to say midterm rentals. And I think it was a video with Tony, Major Sags. I keep wanting to call you Captain. I'm not demoting you. You got the promotion all on your own. But Tony was talking about, most people when they think, and I have a sister, Allie, she's a traveling nurse. So if you think midterm rentals, you think traveling nurses. But it's 47 or 48% of midterm tenants are traveling nurses, which means half or some other source. Corporate travel, military, contractor, whatever it is, there are people who do midterm rentals that aren't. And so they use Furnished Finder, which is smart because Furnished Finder is midterm rentals. It's not travelingnurses.com, right? So make sure I answer your question. Have you ever college students? No, but into them. Yeah, Todd Baldwin, Matt the Lumberjack Landlord. Pros, by the room, you tend to get more. Cons, you have human interaction with human. And have you met humans? Possibly more tenant turnover because colleges only go sometimes, what is it, 15% of high school graduates continue on to a college degree, but a massive number, bigger than 15%, enroll in college. So you're probably going to get somebody for that 1 or 2 years that they go and realize this isn't for them. More tenant turnover. So you're creating more of a job. You've got that real estate X factor. The more work you're willing to do and the more risk you're willing to take, the more money you can make. So I fall pretty low on this spectrum of I want long-term tenants that I talk to once every year or two. And then I want minimum risk, so I have long leases. And I take Section 8, I take military, right? And allow pets, right? So I'm pretty far down on the X. So I could make more money. I could take more risk. What's your comfort zone? How much of a job are you trying to create? Because tenant turnover, more work, more room per money. So tons of pros and cons. Pick the strategy that fits your goal and your bandwidth. Luke, I hope to be a lineman in PA, but I wouldn't mind going around the country a bit. Did you have any issues or temptations spending money in build mode? Well, I thought one time when I was really I almost went on a date in build mode. That would have been a deweiler. Don't do that. Down to word to use for the R word. We'll see how it does. Temptations for spending in build. No, I got the first 2 years saving for the duplex when I originally started saving for another house, thought I was going to get a single family house. I've got this game going on in my head of if I can save this or this over time or this thing in the game that I sold, whatever I was doing to make money, this is how much faster I can save. I was gamified the numbers. That was more exciting than a newer car or a vacation or whatever. So what did you focus on? And it was focused on being frugal, right? And I've said this in many videos. If I knew I had to be frugal in retirement, I never would have invested. I would have just, why bother? I'd just keep working. But since I knew, yeah, be frugal for 5 to 10 years, drive the old cars, don't take vacations, don't eat out. Or if you go out with your friends, don't drink and have an appetizer, right? Just like super weird, frugal guy for a while. The knowledge, just know then this was going to happen. And it's so much better than what I expected. I expected half of this, and that's amazing. And to get where I'm at, to go, no, I had no temptations to spend. The problem is over those 5 to 10 years, to get to the point where I then started buying the nicer cars, taking the month-long trips, then the 2 month-long trips, and then never working again, was the discipline that it takes to develop the habits to make more money, save more money, to invest are really hard to break. I had to create reverse budgets. I had to say, yep, I could drive this older vehicle. Like I downsized vehicles when I retired because I'm going to be traveling, I'm hardly ever here. But I made sure this is the duplex that is now generating like $2,300 a month or so. That's the vehicle duplex. So in a year or two, I'm going to be spending whatever money that made on a vehicle. And I have probably going to be, so if I buy it in 2026, it'll probably be a 2024 hybrid pickup or a diesel, something that could tow an RV or something. Like it's going to be $150,000 vehicle because that's what will be saved up there. I don't want to buy a cheap vehicle. I have a reverse budget of $2,000 a month eating out. That's a requirement. It's not a, that's when I hit that, I hit my limit, I stop going. Is I need to hit at least that much or I'm wasting the money. There's no reason to have money if you're not going to enjoy it. So that switch is not easy to flip. Obama 08 and 12, Trump 16, Biden 20. Thank you. That's my memory is not good. What's it make? Howdy. I just finished my second rental house and want another. What is the strategy in between rental purchases? It's almost identical to before the first one. So if you've taken my course, there's a part of it where I break down the 6 steps to getting started into real estate. The first one is that saving thing where you increase income, decrease expenses so you can save and invest the difference. Saving means focus more on growing income than reducing expenses. The second thing is you work on credit score. Third thing is you talk to a lender to find out what your options are. Fourth thing is you pick a market and a strategy. Fifth thing is you actually now talk to real estate agents. And sixth thing is you repeat the deals, hunting for the deals. So it's very simple. Each one's broken down to a lot more detail than that because I like to talk and I like to be detailed. So in between purchases, what can you do to increase your income? But now it's not just your income. It's your rentals income. Can you contact insurance, raise your premium to lower, raise your deductible to lower your premium, shop around rates? Can you refinance to a better rate? Probably not, because interest rates are so much higher than they were a couple of years ago. Can you increase rents with the binder strategy? Can you add a closet to turn a den into a bedroom so that on the next tenant turnover, it gets $500 more a month? That's the increase. It's you, your portfolio, the rentals that you have, and decrease spending, right? You're still not going out and buying the ridiculously expensive things. You're still working on your credit score, right? You're making sure as many things to me as possible are automated. I'm calling on my credit card company as often as I can and saying, hey, that $50,000 limit you guys have, I don't like that. Let's take that. Let's raise it up to 70. And I'm still only going to spend, $1,000 to $2,000 a month on it and pay it off every day and never carry a balance. But that increases the amount you can borrow and decreases your credit utilization to maintain your score high. Still, whatever you do to keep that up, I'm constantly every now and then checking in with lenders and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What are my options? Not only what are your rates, what are your current buy downs? What's changed in your lending options with, do you have DSCR currently that goes up to 10 units that will do 30-year fixed rate debt? Good, then I can add that to my search, right? So your lending talking to never changes. Every couple of weeks, you want to see what's going on because what they could do a month ago is totally different than what they could do today. My market between purchases of 7th and 8th property, I shifted markets. I started looking for remote work areas and I started watching days on market instead of being fast. So at a decade in, I was still shifting my market. So those 6 steps are the same steps, although they change between first and second and third, fourth, never just rinse and repeat to even now retired with my portfolio. I'm still figuring out what I save every month. Right now, I don't, well, I want to say I don't try to save more, but I just binder strategied everybody again this year. probably gonna be picking up a property when I get back from Thailand because the money will have built up and it'll be time to do it again. So that, but I'm always maintaining my credit score. I still check in with lenders. I'm looking at markets. Like last year, before buying this one, I went to Portugal for 2 months to study the market, not just because that makes it a tax write-off, but because I actually was thinking of buying there. And then I realized for several reasons why that would be a mistake. Purchased here. So those are the 6 steps. What's it make? They don't change. Rinse and repeat. Wealth building journey. Invest in the Midwest. There you go. Cody, Dennis, fair point. Makes more sense to just start anew with something that will actually cash flow when military move again. I totally agree. Dan, question. Will Section 8 approve a house for rent if an ADU is rented separately? Yes. Or can I build an ADU after signing a Section 8 construction? As long as it's done legally and permitted, yes. I mean, I have Section 8 that Section 8 not only will rent a house with an ADU or one of them and not the other, JADU not. They rent one side of a duplex while somebody's living on the other. They rent apartments, but they also have Section 8 rent by the room. And they actually call it something else. But when you go to your Section 8 website, it has basically what they'll pay for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, and a 4-bedroom. And over here next to the 1-bedroom, they have another thing, which is by the room. I think Matt, the lumberjack landlord, has a couple set up that way. I don't, but I would totally do it. I just don't have any set up that way. Section 8 also has the other end of the spectrum where they have help you buy a house. So sometimes they can help tenants buy a house and get on the property ladder. Felix, for anyone investing in Kentucky, sounds like a real place, your lease should 10,000% waive jury trial in case of eviction. There you go. So that's why you check with an attorney in your area and say, hey, what would make your job easier if we ever go to an eviction together? Because they're going to be doing the work. JMS, how many properties typically need to go into a portfolio loan? Can you explain the benefits and drawbacks? It can be a portfolio loan can be anywhere from 2 properties being combined together, size of the properties, how many units are all that kind of matter. So it's just, more than one can be a portfolio loan. There's really no limit based on the lenders of how many more there can be in a portfolio. Some might have limits. It changes often. So the benefits are you have a chance to get all of them to one interest rate. You have a chance to equalize your loan to value on the portfolio instead of the property. So you might have one that's pretty maxed out, one that has a lot of equity, which I don't like that word, your ability to add debt to that existing asset. And there are some ways that they're worded where a portfolio loan means this is the group and that you can't buy or selling. So the drawback is you think, okay, I've got 5 properties in this one. I can't sell one, right? So look at how it's written. Some of them allow you to, because the way the portfolio loan is written is the loan to value amount has to be a certain percentage. So as appreciation happens and principal pay down happens, you might get to the point where you have 5, but you could sell one and not have to do anything. Or you could sell one and you have to put a percentage, 20% or whatever into the portfolio loan to bring it up to the metric that they have. So there's a lot of options there that you'll see in the Facebook groups, like BiggerPockets Facebook groups, you'll see somebody talk about a portfolio loan and they'll say, oh, don't do that because then you can't sell one. Well, you totally can, because it comes down to loan to value of the whole portfolio and how your loan is specifically worded. So there's benefits, there's drawbacks. One of the drawbacks right now, if you purchased in 2020 or you refinanced in 2020, you probably have a 3 or 4% interest rate. Go out to get a portfolio now, that loan's going to be 5 or 6%. That could mess up your existing mortgages, right? So you want to make sure, what's the purpose of the loan? Is it a refinance to a better rate? Is it a refinance to pull money out, which means add debt to an existing asset to do something productive with it? So it comes down to how would you touch it? Sometimes a portfolio loan has the really good benefit of you can have 10 conventional loans in your name. And as you're getting up to 7 or 8 and you're getting thinking, oh, I'm getting close to that 10. If I do a portfolio loan for these 4, that becomes one loan. Is a portfolio loan counted as a conventional loan? It depends on if it's backed by Fannie and Freddie. And if you ever do get to that 10 loan limit in your name, house hacking is not limited to 10. So if you got to 10, go house hack another and you'd have your 11th conventional on your name. The reason I know this is between like 2013, 2018, when I started investing, they were limiting you to 4 because lenders had been kicked in the teeth by the 2008 housing crash, which caused the 2008 recession, toxic debt, And they said, nope, you can only have 4 conventional loans in your name. So Matt, the lumberjack landlord, got to 4 and then continued to house hack to add conventional loans to his name. You also have the option of you and your spouse putting one in each of your own names. Andrew, howdy. What's the highest you'd charge for rent for a nice room near Pierce County College versus Seattle College? Wouldn't own in Seattle College if it came with free tacos, because that's King County. Don't do it. Wouldn't do it. But Pierce County, you're talking PLU. That's the college right there. I'm getting around 2,000. I got one at 1950 and one at 2200, so around 2,000 for 2 bedrooms. 1 bedroom there for a nice one, 1,500. Not nice one, 12, 1,300. That's Pierce County. It's very specific to my market. That means nothing if you're not in Pierce County, Washington. That means nothing in Thurston County, Washington, where the rest of my portfolio is. That's just a specific area by PLU there. Hope that helps, Andrew. 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. So you got 3 rooms, 2 baths. That could be a factor too. How many bedroom to bathroom count factors too. Dennis just saw a meme, biggest scam ever, apartments charging pet fees, but not children fees. My cat literally lays a blanket all day while I can hear children beating on the walls. That is so true. Between 4 and 12 is the same. I respectfully disagree. 12-year-olds are basically doing everything on their own. So here's the difference. The reason I said 4 to 12, they're basically the same is they might do things on their own, but they're still going to cause the same amount of damage. The magic year, Dennis, do you have kids? I have 3. Wanted 0, have 3. At 14, the demonic possession door gets unlocked completely. And they do you can't imagine something worse than what my kids did at 14. So 13 straight A students involved in everything, gymnastics, wrestling. 14, I'm in the police academy. I get called by the police department from the town I live in because of my kid. 15 straight A students. I don't get it. And not that grades dictate everything, but I mean, no problems. That's the 1 year. That's why I said that 4 to 12. Dan, howdy. How do you manage garbage and landscaping for your multifamily properties? So almost all my properties have individual garbage. So they have containers that they take out to the street on a certain day. It's in the lease that they maintain landscaping, everything 8 feet and under, 8 feet and above. I hire tree companies to go handle. I don't do that myself. Grew up doing that. I joined the Marines because that was easier. I don't want to do that again. I have 1 property where it's a dumpster. My fourplex is a dumpster, and I have a yard maintenance company because the yards aren't clearly delineated enough for me to say, this is where you've got to mow and don't worry about them. But all the other ones have pet-friendly fenced yards. And then I've got where I live, where I could do the yard, but I'm lazy, so I hire a guy here. Yeah, most of my property is tenant responsibility, and trash is broken up everywhere except for the dumpster. And then the dumpster has in the lease, here's your rent. Here's the water and trash charge on the rent. So 1 year was binder strategy. Next year, we left the rent the same, amount for water and trash changed. 5 kids from 5 to 10, no, ranging from 10 years old to dirtbag teenagers and adult children. As 14 is bad. I don't know what it was about 14, but that's when everybody went stupid. I thank you all for the questions. I think we're going to be wrapping it up there. Remember, next week, survive Halloween. Next, or is that Thanksgiving? It's coming up first. No, it's November. I don't know. It all blends together because every day is a holiday. None of that matters. Let's get you all here. Course calls next week, 6 p.m. after this. So which means the 2 members only live calls for, getting on Zoom in November will be probably on weekends, and we'll pick Saturday or Sunday. I'll do it on the live the week before. I'll say which works for Betty. We'll take a poll and we'll probably rotate those. I hope the information in this video helped you all. I hope that you learn to love inflation on purpose. Have an evening full of amazing.